There we are.
I
Susan
need it.
Michelle.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. I am here in Western Massachusetts. It is great to be here as always. I am the author of Surrender to Joy, From Suicide to Serenity. I teach the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which we are all here to study, to learn, to embody the knowledge of. And my good friend and soul sister, Myrna Skoller, is the author of Private Lessons with Jesus, along with quite a few other books. Private Lessons with Jesus is the perfect companion to A Course in Miracles workbook for students. It's funny because I have my new version of Course in Miracles, and then I have my Course in Miracles that I've had for over 30 years on one hand, and this book is so tattered and torn, but it's the one I still read because I have everything highlighted and underlined. So anyway, how are you today, Myrna? Your audio isn't working, Myrna. I can hear you very slightly, but it's not easy to hear you.
I don't know why. Is Lynn, you know, my audio should be on. I don't know what the problem is.
It's better now. It's better now, but your face is closer up, huh? I guess try talking again and I'll let you know.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Yeah, it's better. It's better. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a feeling I couldn't be heard before because I was speaking and Lynn didn't seem to hear me. Maybe I should go out and come back in again.
Oh, try
Yes,
going
go
off
out
and
and come
coming
back.
in. Okay.
I'm going to go out and come back in.
Okay. And then I see Sora in the room as well. If you have any thoughts on what we're talking about, Sora, I'd love to hear your shares because you're a very wise teacher and I learned so much from you. Thank you for being here.
And
So,
you as well. That's why I enjoy being here.
oh, thank you. Thank you. So I will start out with the introduction of my book, which I like to recite in the beginning. It was downloaded to me about 10 years ago from Spirit, and Myrna is back. So, hi, Myrna. Do you want to try talking again to say something again? I can't hear you at all now. I
Why? I'm not muted.
Now I can hear you a little bit.
Try checking your microphone settings next to the little microphone. If you click the arrow and see what microphone you're being transmitted on.
Microphone, it's either on or it's off. I'm not muted, so I don't know.
Well, I can hear you a little now, right, Lynn? Right, Sora?
A little bit. Did you click the arrow next to the microphone symbol on the Zoom?
So it's going audio settings, leak. What is it? What should I do? I press that on, the arrow.
Okay, and does it say select a microphone?
Microphone modes, noise removal, default, originals. I don't know. Switch to
What if you raise the volume on your keyboard? That might not do anything, but it's something.
how do I do that? Well,
Yeah, click on audio settings on that list that you were just looking at.
okay. Test microphone, input volume. I don't know.
Okay, so there's a output volume there. If you can you raise that?
Okay. Is this better?
Right now,
Yes.
Is this better now?
yes.
You can hear me?
I can hear you. Not it's low, but it's definitely audible.
Okay. As long as I'm audible. But if I'm not audible, I really don't want to speak. So you let me know.
I can hear you too. Like Sora said, it's a little low, but it's very, very, I can hear you. So I'll let you know though, Myrna.
Okay, and I'll check it out further later.
Okay, I'll let you know, Myrna. I will start with the paragraph from the introduction of Surrender to Joy. I write, my passion is God. God is love and joy and beauty. He is all that is good in the world. Everything else is our own miscreation. When we are filled with joy, we are connected to God. When we are not joyful, we have lost our connection to all that is real. This is my message. It can be clarified with three simple words: surrender to joy. There is nothing to find. All we need to do is surrender. I always say the truth is very simple, the truth is only the love is real. It's not easy because the world is based on the egoic thought system, but it is simple. I had a wonderful little example yesterday when I went to the movie theater with my husband, and we actually saw the movie about Neil Diamond, Song Sung Blue, and it was really, really good. What happened though, which was the little miracle, is that what we do in the theater that we go to is we choose our seats ahead of time, So when you go in, you choose exactly what seats you're going to sit in. You pay for the tickets. I reserve them online. And then when you go there, your seats are waiting for you. So I picked to D8 and D9. It was the third row for my husband and I. I go into the theater. My husband actually was getting some popcorn. I go into the theater, and there was a family sitting in D8 and D9, the seats that I had reserved. It was still the previews. So I said, excuse me, I think you might be in our seats. I'm sorry. I was trying to be as polite as possible, telling them they were sitting in my seats. And so the woman comes back with, well, nobody sits in their assigned seats anyway. Can't you just sit somewhere else? And so all of a sudden I was like taken aback, I was trying to be so nice, and then she starts being so rude. And I said, well, I would actually like to sit in the seats that I paid for, if you don't mind. These are the seats that I reserved. So, because she was being rude, I felt like, obliged to stick to the rules and demand my rights, however you want to phrase it. And then she comes back with, well, my mother is in your seat and she's handicapped. Are you really going to make her move? And I come back with, I really would like to sit in the seats I paid for. And then all of a sudden, kind of the Course in Miracles came into my mind, and I remembered that anger of any kind is not of God, it's of the ego. So I immediately kind of took a step back and I said, please stay exactly where you are. I apologize. I'll just sit over here. And that was it. I just took a step back. I said, stay where you are. I sat to the side. And then I even kind of leaned over and I apologized again. And the man, there was an older man, he's like, oh, fine, don't worry about it. And then I felt like I had forgiven her. I didn't hang on to the resentment. A lot of times when I get into some kind of argument, I might verbally kind of step out of the situation, but emotionally, I'm still hanging on to the resentment. In this instance, I did not hang on to the resentment. I really forgave her. I forgave me and I forgave her, and I just let it go, and I enjoyed the movie. And I knew it was the right thing to do. My higher self felt that it was good to just let her have her way and step out of the situation. So then at the very end of the movie, the lady who had been rude to me comes over and she apologizes. She says, I was extremely rude. I'm so sorry. She says, please accept my apologies. And then she said, I'd like to pay for your tickets. And she handed me
Wow.
something. I didn't know what it was. So, without thinking, I just kind of took it. She says, I want to pay for your tickets. So she was giving me a $20 bill to apologize. And
Wow.
I thought that was it wasn't about the money. I didn't really care about the money, but it was the fact that I took a step back in the beginning and then I really forgave her. I didn't pretend to forgive her. I really forgave her. And then she reflected that back to me. So I thought that was the miracle. Any thoughts?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can? Okay. I'm free to speak clearly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing how what a good movie can do for you. I guess after seeing such a good movie, and I heard it was excellent, she changed her way. She kind of felt more upbeat, had time to think it over, or whatever. But that's like today's lesson. I am determined to see, and the determination. It's about making seeing a priority to see. It's not about what we're hearing with our ears, seeing with our eyes. True vision, is really about going within and knowing with clarity everything beyond that goes beyond physical appearances. So I like today's lesson. I am determined to see, meaning that I really want to see more than anything. And what is determination? Determination to see emphasizes our willingness to see differently. And you spoke about miracles, and that opens the way for miracles. When we start to depend on true vision, we begin to recognize the miracles for what they are. And by affirming, I am determined to see, we're expressing, I believe, expressing our readiness to let go of judgment. You have to be ready to let go of it before you do, because that's really what it's all about, judgment. And judgment is an illusion. So, judgment and illusions are what we place our faith in. That's what we think we live by. But true vision allows a much deeper awareness and a peace to take over and enter into the experience. And so, physical sight. What is physical sight? It refers to the ability that we're given to see with our eyes, to see the objects and forms and so forth. And I guess that's what the course tells us. We're perceiving the world through our own eyes, when that's not what true vision is. It's what the course says about living in the world. Live in the world, yes, but don't live of the world, which to me tells us that we really need to practice seeing. I am determined to see with true vision, and not to rely so much on outward appearances. And as the course tells us, which is lesson 20, by the way, it goes and thank you, Lynn, by the way, for putting the lessons on every day. I do appreciate that. I get them in my email every day. Anyway, lesson 20 goes beyond what the eyes see. And what is that? It's an inner capacity, I think, to sort of perceive reality rather than falsehoods. To perceive reality with understanding, with wisdom, with empathy, with compassion. And it's not the same as physical sight. Physical sight is limited to the material world. And true vision really involves just recognizing the underlying truth, seeing past the illusion, and to experience a much deeper awareness. And then we can experience peace. That's how we develop peace. So we talk about miracles. What are miracles? Miracles are shifts from fear to love, happiness. Well, fear to love. Love is really there are just two places to be: fear or love. So we're going from fear to love. That's all about happiness and joy, forgiveness and wholeness. But fear is different. Fear is more or less an attack, and it's an attack, and it brings us to guilt. Attack brings us to guilt and unhappiness, ambiguity, and all that. So that's what falls under the umbrella of fear. So the Course continually tries to show us the difference, to make us see with our true vision, and we can then adhere to the truth. And what is a miracle? To me, I've experienced miracles, and it's not a supernatural event or anything, but it just changes the way it changes our mind about the world. And miracles happen when we choose to let go of fear and see with true vision, as I just spoke about, the truth of what we're truly seeing, which does not require us to see with our eyes. We see with our thoughts, we see with our inner value that we're given to approach the world with, and recognizing the underlying truth and the oneness that connects all of us. And this shift opens us up to healing. And then we can understand what peace is. It gives us a deeper sense of peace. Any thoughts about that, Susan?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of what happened at the example at the movie theater yesterday, in my mind, that was a wonderful learning opportunity for me, and it was a miracle. On one hand, I walked into the theater and somebody else was sitting in the seats that I had paid for, and I thought of the phrase that we ask sometimes here in the chat room in Gather: would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And I was right, because they were sitting in my seats and I did pay for the seats. And I was angry at their attitude, but it's not about being right. It's about being happy. And projecting fear makes me miserable. Extending love brings peace to my mind. So it was really interesting, because in that moment that I was defending my position, asserting the fact that I had the right to sit in the seats that I paid for, I started thinking, well, I am setting boundaries for myself. I'm not allowing people to take advantage of me. But it was so clear that I had a choice, and the choice was between fear and love. It was actually a wonderful example for me. It's almost like God orchestrated that example to teach me what I needed to learn at that moment. So I decided that I was going to, I started out from a place of fear. I started out, demanding that they move out of my seats. But the choice in my mind was so clear that I could choose to stand my ground, which was based on egoic reasoning, or I could choose to love and let go. And that was coming from the Holy Spirit. It was just such a clear choice. And then when I chose to let go, I knew I had made the right choice. And again, I didn't hang on to resentment towards the lady that started out being rude to me. And another thing that I didn't do is I didn't hang on to resentment towards myself. Because sometimes what I do when I let the other person off the hook, then all of a sudden the anger turns inwards. And I start saying to myself, well, I shouldn't have gotten angry in the first place. You know, I had a chance to be nice, but then I shouldn't have been angry in the first place. So I'll start berating myself for behaving wrongly. But I didn't hold on to resentment towards the other lady, and I didn't hold on to any resentment towards myself. And I let the fear go. So it was a great learning lesson for me. And then at the end of the movie, I don't know that if the fact that the movie was good had anything to do with it. I don't know. But what I do know is at the end of the movie, she basically reflected back to me what was being extended, what I was extending from my own mind. She reflected back to me the love that I was extending to her. So I thought that was a really great learning lesson for me, you know, and I'm glad it happened. I think that, you know, we have lots of opportunities to learn on a daily basis what a miracle is. And I went on to ChatGPT to get an exact definition here of a miracle. I mean, basically, I know A Course in Miracles tells us that anything that comes from love is a miracle, and some miracles are not bigger than others. Anything that comes from love is a miracle. It says, according to A Course in Miracles, a miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love. And again, that's what happened at the movie theater. I started out defending my position, and then it just didn't feel right. So I let it go and I started loving. And that was the miracle. A very clear example of a miracle. A miracle is not a physical event. It doesn't change the world out there. It changes how you see the world, which is very, very interesting too, because the love that we think that we're going to find in the world can only be found within. We can't find love in the world. Love really doesn't exist out there. The love that we're searching for doesn't exist out there in the world. The love that we're searching for, we need to find within. That's why it's so important to start each day with the Course in Miracles lesson. That's why it's so important to start each day with a meditation, which I have been doing again, you know, and it's really transformative. It's so grounding and centering to start each day with a meditation, because again, when we are looking for our satisfaction in the world, we're never going to find it. We have to keep ourselves plugged into our God socket first. I haven't used that expression in a while. We need to plug ourselves into our God socket first, each thing in the morning, and then go into the world to share that light with our brother. And that's how we just gain the peace we're craving, gain the fulfillment that our soul is craving. It says, a miracle is an expression of love. A miracle restores awareness of truth, because the truth is we are love. So a miracle is just allowing us to remember the truth of who we are. We were created in God's image, and, you know, when we project fear, when we project guilt, we forget who we are. When we extend love, we remember how much we have inside of us. We need our brother to get home to heaven, and they need us. The reason we need them is because we don't know how much love we have inside of us until we extend it outwards. You know, this is how we learn who we are, by extending love to our brother. We remember God gave everything to everyone when they were born. So everyone has anything they could possibly desire within. We don't, sometimes we forget. We don't know how much we have inside of us unless we extend it to our brothers. So our brothers need us to get back to heaven, and we need them to find our way back to heaven. And again, it's about mental focus, you know. This is a course in mind training, Jesus tells us, because when we focus on the truth of who we are, this is how we will remember it. That's why you brought up lesson 20, Myrna. Today's lesson is lesson 20. I am determined to see. We need to focus upon what we want to learn. We need to focus upon the love. We need to focus on the truth. And then we will remember what we have within us. And it really is miraculous to remember how much we have within us. In lesson number 20, I have the second paragraph, or part of the second paragraph, highlighted. Jesus writes, Jesus says, you want to be happy. You want peace. You do not have them now because your mind is totally undisciplined, and you cannot distinguish between joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, love and fear. You are now learning how to tell them apart, and great indeed will be your reward. So when we focus on love, we remember how much we have within us to extend. Thoughts, Myrna?
Um, you talk about our love, and what is the opposite of love? Love is, I mean, you think about the ego. What is the ego? The course talks about as well, and that kind of reinforces the separation, doesn't it? What you experience at the movie theater, that really was very telling. It really was, because like you say, perhaps it was a lesson. Everything is either a lesson or a blessing. I don't know. All I know is that what came to mind when you told me that, I remember a long time ago, Jolie and I, my husband was we were on a trip, and he was having problems with his back and so forth, but we managed. So we get on the bus early, we get a great seat. This was a tour bus. And with that, a woman comes limping, and she says, I can't go to the back of the bus. And the tour guide said, yes, maybe you want to give up the seat, let her sit there. So Charlie and I got up and gave her our seat. And, we went to our destination. And when we got to our destination, we're walking along, and there's the woman running with that. She's climbing up the stairs. Charlie couldn't do that because of his back. But here we had, my point is, we were so benevolent, and here, as it turned out, she was really just faking it. She just got onto the bus late. We had a front seat. We had to then grapple for seats on the bus because she took our seats. And here afterwards, when we got off the bus, she's really having no problem running and walking and circling, whereas Charlie couldn't climb the steps to the top because of his back. So I remember thinking, gee, I was angry at myself for having given up the seats. So you never know. You really don't. Who's right? Who's wrong? I think it's just a matter of feeling peace. You want to kind of be in a place where you're feeling peace, and that's really, what really counts more than anything. And if think about this: if you had just walked away and not and let her just say, okay, kicking you out of your seats, and you sat somewhere else, well, would you have been at peace with that? So that's really always the question. I try to kind of separate, the conflict there, trying to, maintain that type of comparison, and then we talk about, as I said, the ego. Instead of, the ego are the illusions that keep us from recognizing our unity with others, and again with God as well. So by becoming aware of our ego thoughts, We have to just choose to let them go, whatever they are, and then we open ourselves to what we said before, which is true vision, which brings us peace and understanding. And what is inner peace? We talk about peace. It's a state of calmness, acceptance, um, and and I think it has nothing to do with external circumstances. You know, I think what happens if the mind is not free of conflict, then we don't experience peace, and and that's really what we have to discern, whether we're feeling peaceful or not. So inner peace really is experiencing the natural state of releasing guilt and then forgiving, and forgiving ourselves as well as others, and recognizing that our true identity goes beyond the ego and illusions. And peace is not dependent on the world, but it really comes from a much deeper connection with love and the truth within ourselves. And then it brings us to, again, a miracle. It's the miracle, and I ask myself that question an awful lot. And the answer that I get is that it restores our awareness to the connection, to our connection with other people. And then again, we look for ways to feel, peaceful and loving. And that's really what we aim. That's what the Course aims to teach us for, to be in that place all the time, to be in that place of love. And returning to heaven. What is the return to heaven? Heaven's not a physical place, but rather a state of mind. The Course tells us we can experience that, state of mind by understanding our oneness with God and all creation, all our brothers and sisters. And so we get back to heaven by letting go of guilt and releasing ego thoughts and forgiving ourselves and other people as well. And it's a process, actually, that dissolves the illusion of separation and fear, and it allows us to see our true identity as love and peaceful souls that we were created to be. And that's what it is. Any thoughts about that, Susan?
Yeah. You spoke a lot of wisdom, and you said that it is very important to forgive ourselves as well as others. And that is so true. When I was giving the example about the movie theater, I said that I forgave her, but sometimes when I forgive the other person, I start blaming myself and find things that I did wrong. But whether we blame the other person, whether we resent the other person, or we blame ourselves, we're still siding with the ego. I think that's one of the ego's tricks, actually. So we forgive our brother, and then we feel better, but then all of a sudden we still have that resentment in our mind. So we turn the resentment inwards. We start blaming ourselves. But when we blame ourselves, again, we are still aligning our thoughts with the egoic thought system. We are still connected to fear, whether we blame our brother or we blame ourselves. Basically, the way out of the egoic thought system is to embody the essence of innocence. I actually love that affirmation. I embody the essence of innocence. And I say that before I get out of bed each morning, because guilt is of the ego. Innocence is freedom. Innocence is when we align our mind with God's mind. When we feel innocent, we align our mind with the mind of the Holy Spirit, whether we see the innocence in our brother or we feel the innocence in ourself. This is how we connect to our higher self, connect to God's mind. You know, um, we can't feel guilt and feel love. Like, it's just impossible. There's this one commercial I see on the news pretty consistently, and there is a well-known pastor that advises everybody to pray to God and say the words, "I am a sinner." This is how he wants our prayers to start off. He says, "Pray with me. I am a sinner, and you sent your son, Jesus, to atone for my sins." Now, in A Course in Miracles, it is pointing out the untruth of that. When I see myself as a sinner, what I'm doing is I'm keeping myself down. I'm keeping myself connected to my ego. When I see myself as a sinner, you know, I am disconnected from the truth of who I am. I'm disconnected from God. And A Course in Miracles clearly, you know, it says in A Course in Miracles, and I love this because many things in A Course in Miracles point out the misinterpretations of the Bible. In A Course in Miracles, Jesus said, "I was not punished because you were bad." That's what it says in A Course in Miracles. Jesus says, "I was not punished because you were bad," because the whole thing doesn't make sense. You know, how can Jesus Christ being assassinated somehow make up for the fact that we were bad? It doesn't make sense. You know, it's just ludicrous, really, to think like that. I mean, the point of the crucifixion was that I believe that Jesus was exemplifying, he was a living example of seeing the innocence on the other side of people's projections of fear. So everyone was projecting their fear onto Jesus, and he saw through their projections to the truth of who they were. That was it. That was it. And he was there to exemplify the fact that fear has no power over him. Fear has no power over us. I mean, that's what it exemplified, and that's what's so beautiful about it. So, again, for me, sometimes it helps me to compare the traditional Christian thought system to A Course in Miracles, because that is how I grew up. I know that when I can just forgive myself, when I'm with the Course in Miracles says there's three fastest ways to get to heaven are forgiveness, acceptance, and gratitude. Gratitude, being grateful for everything that we have, because God gave everything to everyone when they were born. We did not create ourselves. God created us, and we were created perfect. Acceptance, accepting everything in our life exactly as it is. As Carl Jung say, what you resist persists. It's not about resisting anything at all. It's just about, I mean, in order to experience peace, I think it's very important to accept everything in our lives exactly as it is. Another affirmation that I love to say to myself is, what if everything is just perfect right here, right now? That's about being fully present in the moment. You know, when we can be fully present in the moment, our mind is at peace. And of course, forgiveness is the fastest way to heaven. Forgiving our brothers, forgiving ourselves. I mean, God does not need to forgive us because God has never condemned us. God is incapable of condemnation. of any kind, we need to forgive ourselves. We need to forgive our brother because uh, because there's a part of us that is still connected to the ego, and forgiveness is what sets us free. Forgiveness is how we release the ego and get back to our right mind. Thoughts, Myrna?
I like the way you spoke of Jesus in A Course in Miracles. And I always look very closely at that. You know, Jesus speaks about the crucifixion in fact, in A Course in Miracles, and offers, you know, it's almost like a reinterpretation of what its meaning is. So, you know, the crucifixion is not seen as a symbol of suffering per se, but it offers a reinterpretation of its meaning. For instance, you know, instead of suffering or sacrifice, it's not about that, but rather it was a demonstration of the unreality of attack and the power of forgiveness. So I always felt that what he was trying to emphasize in the Course is that the true lesson of the crucifixion was to show that even in the face of, we'll say, apparent harm, our spirit always remains untouched and innocent. And the cross, therefore, I think became a symbol of overcoming fear and choosing love instead of guilt. As you said before, it's a choice. And you know, and it gets back to Jesus' teaching in the Course of Miracles, which is central theme is about forgiving, about healing, about the recognition of our shared innocence. And you know, it's very different than the traditional religious interpretations. You know, sin is understood not as a wrongdoing, but as a simple error or a mistake in perception. That's all it is. It's an illusion that we can separate. You know, the illusion that we can separate from God is all that it is. It's just an illusion because we can't separate from God. Our true nature is to be within the reality of God, God's love and truth, because as we were created, that's what we are. And you mentioned blame. You know, blame is seen really as I think, a projection of guilt, and it reinforces the illusion of separation. You know, while innocence is recognized as our true nature, and the Course really does go out of its way to emphasize that these terms are meant to guide us towards forgiveness, healing, the realization, you know, of our shared innocence. And you know, sin is not real or a permanent state, but as I said before, it's a mistake in our perception, and the Course forgives that. Jesus, I should say, forgives that, and because once we see that sin is simply a misbelief, that we can separate ourselves from God, is untrue. And because we, as I said before, we can't separate from God. So rather than viewing sin as something as deserving punishment, the Course encourages us to see it as a call for correction. And then we begin to feel forgiveness and understanding, and we don't judge anymore. That sort of obliterates the judgment, the need to judge. And by releasing the belief in sin, we open the way for healing. And again, our true inheritance really is innocence, right, Susan?
That's right, Myrna. And Sora, thank you so much for your writings in the chat room. Sora wrote at 2:08, only you can deprive yourself of anything. Do not oppose this realization, for it is truly the beginning of the dawn of light. Remember also that the denial of this simple fact takes many forms, and these you must learn to recognize and to oppose steadfastly without exception. This is a crucial step in the reawakening. The beginning phases of this reversal are often quite painful, for as blame is withdrawn, see, that's so interesting, Sora. For as blame is withdrawn from without, there is a strong tendency to harbor it within. That's just what we were talking about. You know, we release our brother and then we start blaming ourselves. But
Right.
when we
So,
blame ourselves, the ego still has control. Go ahead.
no, somebody's got to be guilty. If it's not
Yeah,
our brother, then it's me. Like guilt is like the sword of Damocles hanging over our heads.
exactly. But I mean, I think that's how the ego is so manipulative. You know, we're like kind of proud of ourselves for releasing our brother, but then the ego comes back and we start blaming ourselves, and the ego still has us under his control. Because whether we're projecting guilt outwards or inwards, we're still under the reins of the ego. And then you write here from A Course in Miracles, there is a strong tendency to harbor it within. It is difficult at first to realize that this is exactly the same thing, for there is no distinction between within and without. That's so brilliant. Thank you for putting that up there. There is no distinction between within and without, you know, because as I say, what we're seeing in our external world is only a reflection of what we're feeling within ourselves. Yeah, that is just a brilliant paragraph that you put in the chat room. Thank you, Sora. Because you know, it's A Course in Miracles is teaching us to release the guilt. And when we can release the guilt, can we remember the truth? You know, I went into Course in Miracles. I found a few paragraphs in Course in Miracles that were writing about what we were talking about. You know, here in chapter 13, Roman numeral 9, the cloud of guilt, Jesus writes, guilt remains the only thing that hides the Father, for guilt is the attack upon his Son. The guilty always condemn, and having done so, they will still condemn, linking the future to the past, as is the ego's law. So when we are projecting our guilt outward, we are disconnected from God. We are disconnecting from the truth of who we are. When we see guilt in our brother, we are not remembering the truth about who we are. And then, as Sora just wrote in the chat room, which I love, when we internalize the guilt, we are also disconnecting ourselves from God. We're disconnecting ourselves from our innocence. We're disconnecting ourselves from the truth of who we are. The way to connect to the truth is by releasing the guilt. How do we release the guilt? We embody the essence of innocence. We remember that the truth of who we are has no guilt. The truth of who we are is innocent. I am a innocent child of God. You know, in my meditation, I say different affirmations. One is that my mind is connected to God's mind. My mind is holy. You know, when we're in our right mind, when we're connected to the truth of who we are, you know, there is no guilt, there is no resentment, there is no punishment, there is no condemnation. So, and the other part of A Course in Miracles that I found is about the crucifixion. We were talking about the crucifixion, and Jesus writes in chapter 6, it's in chapter 6, the lessons of love. Oh, here it is. The message of the crucifixion. What I have underlined and highlighted is the second paragraph, where Jesus writes, the crucifixion is nothing more than an extreme example. Its value, like the value of any teaching device, lies solely in the kind of learning it facilitates. It can be and has been misunderstood. This is only because the fearful are apt to perceive fearfully. I have already told you that you can always call on me to share my decision and thus make it stronger. I have also told you that the crucifixion was the last useless journey the sonship need take, and that it represents release from fear to anyone who understands it. While I emphasize only the resurrection before, the purpose of the crucifixion and how it actually led to the resurrection was not clarified then. Nevertheless, it has a definite contribution to make to your own life, and if you will consider it without fear, it will help you understand your own role as a teacher. So it's not about it's not about punishment, you know, and Jesus is saying that this is the last useless journey that we will take. I believe it's about seeing that, and I believe Course in Miracles is teaching us that the teaching is that the projection of fear really has no power over us unless we give it power. Myrna, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, the last useless journey. That's interesting. That was an extreme teaching. You know, that's what the Course of Miracles tells us. Really, you know, rests. You know, it's the search. I don't know. I think the journey is considered useless because it's based on illusion, and there were, you know, and that. You know, something external that's what it was really, you know, toward that it led nowhere. You know, the last useless journey really leads nowhere, and our true home and the completeness that we need are really found with God. You know, the last useless journey, I think, comes when we recognize that returning to God and remembering our oneness and spiritual wholeness is the only meaningful journey to take. And that was an amazing, extreme teaching that was so misunderstood, and because it was misunderstood, it created so much sorrow and unhappiness. And it's wonderful to learn really the truth, because when you hear the truth, you know what the truth is because you feel it. It makes sense. And certainly when he teaches that in the Course in Miracles, it's in tune with what he teaches, that everything is an illusion. And it's, you know, illusion is rooted in our belief in separation. And you know, true abundance talks about abundance is fulfillment that comes from recognizing our unity with each other. And that's really what it is. So, yeah, I kind of enjoyed you talking about that. And also, one other thing I wanted to say that a chat that Sora put up about deprivation. You know, we deprive ourselves. Nothing can be deprived of us. We just deprive ourselves. So again, you know, that's also an illusion. and it's rooted in the belief in separation, and true abundance and fulfillment comes from recognizing that the unity with each other. And I think deprivation is just an illusion. You know, it's a perception, and it's just a mistaken thought system. You know, it's thought that just keeps us another thing that just keeps us apart from our source, God. So we have to shift our perception from scarcity to abundance by practicing forgiveness and remembering our true spiritual nature. So, yeah.
Yeah, whenever we feel like we are a victim of circumstances, we are aligning ourselves with the ego. Whenever we feel like we're victimized, whenever we see our brother as a victim of circumstances, we are aligning ourselves with the ego. You know, it's like looking at the cup, and we have a choice. If it's half full, we can focus on the fact that it's half empty, or we can focus on the fact that it's half full. And whatever we are focusing on is what our truth becomes. You know, it's so interesting because we're all like resonating to this energetic vibration. And if we are focusing on abundance, if we're focusing on how much we have, if we're grateful, you know, this is why A Course in Miracles tells us to be grateful, because if we're grateful for what we have, what happens is we attract more into our life. You know, there's biblical quotes about this too. So when we're grateful for our abundance, when we're grateful for what we have, the universe gives us more, you know, because the world is a reflection of our thought system. So if we're focused on how much we have, well, we attract more into our life. The opposite is also true. When we focus on the glass as being half empty, when we focus on what we don't have, when we come from a place of neediness, when we come from a place of desperation, when we come from a place of victimization, well, then, you know, then what we do have gets taken away from us because we're coming from a scarcity mindset. We always have a choice. When we focus on abundance, the universe gives us more. When we focus on scarcity, the universe kind of takes away what we do have, not because it's punishing us. God has no desire to punish us. It's because we are always creating our own reality. You know, that's why A Course in Miracles clearly states that this is a course in mind training. If we want to see ourselves as a victim, well, that's what the universe is going to reflect back to us. But if we want to just see ourselves as a beautiful child of God, that's what the universe is going to reflect back to us. We always have a choice. We are always creating our own reality. All thought creates form on some level. That's why it's so important to plug ourselves into the God socket first thing in the morning, you know, because God wants us to have everything. He wants us to open our heart to accept his love unconditionally. That's what he wants for us. So it's really quite amazingly beautiful when we meditate on the truth of A Course in Miracles. Any final thoughts, Myrna?
No, you said it all. You know, you're right. Jesus wants us to have everything. And we can have everything if we just accept it. to not feel guilty about what we're given.
So, as A Course in Miracles says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. The only thing that's real is the love. And thank you so much for being here with us. Sora, Lynn, Dove just came into the chat room. Thank you, Myrna. I love you. I love our time together here in Gather. And I will now return the microphone to Lynn.
Well, I think we can just leave the room, right?
Yeah, it's 2:33.
Yeah.
Okay, love you, Myrna.
Love you, sweetheart. Take care, darling.
You
Good.
too.
I'll see you soon. Bye.
See you soon.
Thank you so much, Susan, Michelle. Thank you, Susan and Myrna. I so appreciate the both of you. So right now it's time for Dr. Sora. I'm going to go ahead